Welcome everyone to the ESL Premiership autumn, I nearly said summer, wrong hemisphere. 2022. We are doing Apex Legends here today. I'm Nari Mizuki, and join with me is the Eternal Jay. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing pretty good, actually. I just settled in. I've just gotten over a nice little cold. The winter season has hit me pretty hard, but it's okay. Good to go here for the Premiership, powered by Intel. I'm excited, actually. It's my first time really commentating professional Apex, so I've always had an interest in the game. Never had an opportunity to really get involved in it, and now here with the Premiership involved, I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm actually quite looking forward to it as well. I haven't had a chance to dip my toes into Apex for a very long time, and I know that the European scene in general has really been starved for competitive experience outside of the ALGS. So this is a really cool little initiative to give some more teams in the UK and Ireland regions an opportunity to show what they're made of. So really exciting stuff. We're going to kick off the broadcast with our AOC refresh. We'll chat a little bit about what happened on our last play day and maybe a little bit about what's happened leading up to this point. We've got a few replays for you guys, but Jay, I know that you've really been following the tournament and watching some stuff. So what really stood out to you in the last few play days?
Well, I think the obvious thing to state is the fact that UTFT have just been utterly dominant over the course of this season. I was kind of looking at a lot of the players involved, seeing some legendary names in Apex history getting involved in this tournament, and I was kind of surprised to see that UTFT are doing as well as they have done. We'll take a look at the standings specifically, but for those of you that aren't quite aware, they are the team to beat right now. I think they might even have locked themselves in for first place coming to the end of the group stage.
Yeah, very, very likely. And there has been some pretty fierce competition. You look at a team like Murky, came through at the top on the first play day, had a little bit of a dip there after. Myth as well, been struggling a little bit to maintain some relevancy. And as you say, UTFT have really, really stood among the rest, stood atop the crowd there. So really, really impressive stuff there. But I'm looking forward to seeing what's gonna come through today, as we are getting to we're getting close to the end of our season, and teams are going to be scrambling for those last few points to try and find an opportunity to get a little bit further along. So looking back on the last few days, are there any teams that you think might make a bit of a surprise run for us?
Well, as of right now, I think that the key thing to follow is the battle for second place. So you mentioned Murky obviously coming out on top of day one, and they've been able to maintain a decent level of consistency to be in a second place position, but they are so close to the Franco Brits and Chets, who are closing in within about 20 points of that Murky side. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, for that particular group of three to change up as the days go on. After that, it kind of does drop off. I know that Gang obviously have been having some difficulties in recent times, in last week especially, seeing them not quite and just barely hold on to that top 5 position. And I think as a result that there is resurgence potential for the teams below that Gang side, but that group of 2nd through 4th, I think, is where the most interesting things can happen today, because of just the fact of how close it really can be. Murky are not infallible, and they've proven that as the season has rolled on.
Yeah, now it's closer. Teams like UTFT likely going to be looking to secure positioning more than obviously the kills, and that of course becomes that serious thing to weigh up for a lot of teams, right? Do you play slightly more aggressive, try and get a lot of kill points? Maybe you don't necessarily get those high standings at the end of the round, but you can make up that deficit. But a team like UTFT that we know can do very well in those placings, and of course sitting comfortably in the lead right now, almost a full 100 points difference between our first and second place spot. You know what? I think that they're gonna be mostly chilling, playing it safe, and playing for those placements.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the aggressive start. I noticed that some teams have tried to drop into UTFT in the last couple of days. Hasn't always worked out for them, unfortunately. But yeah, you're right. They are comfortable right there. Again, that 2nd through 4th position with Franco Bits, Murky, and Chets is where I'm sort of looking at things, saying that that's where I think the biggest moves are going to come through for them, because again, they have been such a tightly sort of a knit pack of teams right there and then. I think those are probably the guys to watch out for the most, mostly because if they do go for some aggressive early moves when it comes to drops and when it comes to just general playstyles, then things could go off the rails for one or all of those teams.
Yeah, and I think that that's also such a dangerous thing to try and weigh up, right? Maybe 2 days ago, you look at a team like UTFT and you go, okay, we can try and ego them, try and push them, try and get them out so that we can stop them from getting too many more points. But now at this late stage of the game, it's dangerous to do that. You would rather try not to take that fight, because let's face it, even if you deny them points for the next few days, they're still likely going to be sitting right towards the top, and you might, it might backfire entirely. You might get your entire squad wiped out, and then you've lost the opportunity to try and regain those points. So it's a bit of a knife's edge that these teams are going to be balancing on, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they try to navigate that. Of course, it is a slightly smaller lobby. Some teams had some difficulties, and so unfortunately we're not running a full lobby, and that brings its own challenges as well in terms of how much space there is on the map, and finding the rotations that you have to make. There's so much free space, you can start to get a little bit paranoid about where the enemy players are going to be. But I think another important factor that tends to get overlooked is the importance of legend composition, and we do actually have a statistic. We've been bringing this up on some of the broadcasts just to show you our most picked legends, and a resounding 30% on that Valkyrie. And I think for most of us that makes a lot of sense, the rotational ability of that legend. But looking at some of the other ones in that upper echelon, does anything kind of stick out to you? Any surprises, or is this kind of par for the course?
I think it is kind of par for the course. Like, I don't think anyone's shocked the Valkyrie has currently got 30% pick rate. Like, Skyward Dive is such an overpowered move, in my opinion. The ability just to basically get a secondary job later on during the middle of the game, right? And it hasn't always worked out for a lot of teams. I know that UTFT have been struggling with that. There was actually one moment, I think, in the first week where they had a Skyward Dive and dived directly into like a crossfire of 4 different teams. I found that particularly funny. Again, even the top squads are not always that infallible. But again, Valkyrie can be very impactful to shift the movements of the game. I am kind of a bit surprised we haven't seen more of Wraith, honestly. I always liked Wraith when she was introduced at the very start of the game. That was one of my main picks, actually, whenever it came to playing games. I really enjoy her kit. I have only seen so much of her, though. Again, not even on that top 10 list. So in terms of team composition, I guess everyone has their preferences, and in that sort of sense, you can understand why that hasn't worked out. Obviously, meta games do shift, and things have changed since those early days of 2019. And right now, I can't be too shocked. Again, there's been so many changes in the last year or so that Apex has become almost an entirely different game, and you can just see it from how the compositions have worked out for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Wraith used to be a staple, right? Like 100% pick rate. The mobility that she has is unparalleled. And then as time went on, obviously the Wattson came out, and you had that more like bunker setup. Teams were playing very, very slow game. And so they brought out some stuff to try and deal with that. The crypto came out, so you could disable a lot of Wattson's ability. And it's been really great how Apex has evolved over time and brought out these legends that are kind of countering one another, and allowing the meta to evolve somewhat. And I mean, we even had Octane in the meta for a little while. Gibraltar, after his shield got buffed, had a little bit of love as well. So I think it's unsurprising to see that we're moving away from that meta. And of course, with more legends coming out, you look at Sia, who's sitting up at the second place in terms of legend pick rate. And the amount of vision that he gives you, it's in the name, right? Sia, so much information garnered from that single legend. I think it's very difficult to overstate how impactful that can be, all of that information available to you. You couple that with a really good sense of, circle reading and where that circle is going to end up going, and what rotations are going to look like. Because, these teams, they tend to have their kind of set drop spots, and teams generally tend to know drop spots. They'll have a good idea of what rotations are going to look like. So when you have that extra little bit of information, I think that it can give you that little bit of an edge to push forward. But I'll be curious, have you seen any interesting legend picks throughout the last few days, or for the most part has it been just kind of this stock standard, what we saw on the list?
Yeah, definitely stock standard. Again, it doesn't shock me the series in second pick position, right? Again, you just basically stated exactly why the series has been picked so much. We've already been over the top picks in that sort of sense. So you can expect a lot of that to come through as the day rolls on over the course of the day. Something you did mention there a moment ago, though, was the standard drop positions at the start of the games, actually. You mentioned the lobby being a little bit more reduced. I wonder how the lack of teams will start to affect things coming into today, because of the fact that we will have a lot more space to move around with, a lot more breathing room for a lot of squads involved in today's action, and therefore, like, you could be seeing some very early game sort of passiveness and very early game careful considerations, and whether or not they might want to break tactic and try and go towards a different part of the map as to their usual sort of drop positions and try and try something a bit more risky, right? Try play a different kind of game, especially for those teams in the middle of the table, right? At this point in the season, we've only got like 2 weeks left, so you're going to need to make some risks, and that might be the risk that they ultimately take.
Yeah, and I mean, the other factor, so when you have a lobby of a full 20 teams, you start to rotate from your drop to another area, and you go, this has been looted. Well, of course it has. There's 20 teams in the lobby. But when you have a slightly smaller lobby and you find an area that's already been looted, and so very quickly you start to gather that information. You find an area that hasn't been looted. Not only do you have the advantage of being able to loot a second area, but you also know that there aren't any teams nearby, and you can start to kind of narrow down where teams are going to be a lot earlier than you would have been able to previously. So that's going to give you a lot of that early game information, and I think that could even affect some of the compositions that we see coming out, right? So that early game information becomes slightly less of a massive importance factor. So you start thinking a lot more towards the late game. You start thinking more towards, being a circle sweeper, you're going to want that mobility. So maybe you trade that out for a little bit more movement than what you would have had previously. Or if you're someone who likes to play zone, then maybe you swap it out for something a little bit more bunker heavy. Maybe you bring out that Gibraltar, like we mentioned, or even the Newcastle possibly, right? There's a lot of really great defensive setups that can be made with that. We haven't seen that. Would be nice. But yeah, it's just things to kind of keep in mind as the circumstances of the game change. So too could the approach from the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. You just sort of keep your eye on the action as it rolls out today. And again, as I mentioned before, last couple of weeks of action, so really last chances to get some points on the board for a lot of the teams in the mid and the bottom end of the tables. Teams like Eco, for example, that I think have been a little bit disappointing in this season, right? They're currently playing in the ALGS Pro League, and they've sort of been sitting in that 10th to 12th sort of position as the weeks have gone on. And I look at a team like that thinking that this is prime opportunity, this is prime real estate to get in a bit more of a theoretically comfortable environment, right? If you're playing towards like your in a much more empty lobby, you've got an opportunity to sit there and formulate a decent strategy with a lot of breathing room, a lot of comfortability around that. I feel like that's the sort of position in which a team like an Eco can thrive, but obviously you've also got to focus on getting the kill points and of course getting the win at the end of the game. So this is the prime opportunity to try something different, right? To try something new and to insert yourselves into the matchup with an opportunity to gain as many points as possible. So a lot to think about in this one as Game 1 is set to go live, and we'll just drop in and see how it goes.
Yeah, this is our very first round, play day 5 of the ESL Apex Legends Premiership Autumn 2022. That is a mouthful. I'm looking forward to seeing how our first game is going to go today. There's a little bit of extra pressure on our teams. 7 squads in the lobby, so yeah, a little bit of a small one. And again, we'll start to see how teams might start to abuse that a little bit as the game goes on. For now, of course, it is just the loot simulator, trying to find the optimal weaponry, the optimal loadout for when those engagements do, come about.
On board with UTFT at this moment, who have also got decent luck to stay inside safety in the first phase of the game. So they've got that little bit of comfortability, again, about the current drop position. And, of course, encouraging for them to hold their own, right? The wins can come through with the basics, essentially, for UTFT. Again, they've been playing such a dominant game over the course of the last couple of weeks, and you can expect that they'll be able to continue to play at their own right. And I don't know if they'll see much challenge at this stage. Chet's already engaging in action, though, and I'm kind of surprised, given how spread out they are, that they've already found some action. I think it's the Franco-Brits that are challenging them at the moment, and that's not encouraging. Actually, that is encouraging, because for Chet's obviously being only a place behind the Franco-Brits, opportunity to try and take out one of those key teams within that 3-team bracket.
Yeah, I'm going to try and take advantage of that. But also, you have to be, you have to play a little careful. Pick your battles. And so instead, they'll opt to give up a little bit of that space, give themselves a moment to get some ground, get some of that utility that we were talking about, some of that loadout, get the hell out of there. Don't take an unnecessary fight. It's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. A lot of these teams are going to be looking for placement, especially those top-tier teams, right? The scramble to try and get placement and a high kill count so that you can rake in points is not so dire for those slightly higher ranked or rated teams at the moment. And for them, it's more about stay alive as long as possible, don't take unnecessary fights, don't get yourself knocked out, and hopefully, stick around to towards the end. So instead, they give up that position, and they start to move out, and they're moving out towards the edge of the zone. So they're gonna, depending on how long they take here, of course, they could be looking to do a little bit of circle sweeping, and they've got a decent composition for it. Of course, the Valkyrie out and available here could give them the exact momentum they need.
Indeed. Just, again, continuing to loot up towards this eastern side of the map. And you mentioned, obviously, the situation for them holding their lifeline to getting towards the top-end sort of placements and try and be the last squad standing, which certainly is a thing to think about for a lot of these teams in that top 3. But I also think about the potential of potentially removing a team like the Franco Brits, right? Again, that's one of their key sort of rivals on the Czech side. And if they can find some of those fights and win them, then that could also provide the opportunity, again, to take points away and try to usurp them, get into the third or second place positions if they can hold on to it. Obviously, that comes with its own risk. So that's another dynamic I'm sort of focusing on, the risk versus reward things for all these teams involved. Czechs, in this case, opting not to go for the risk. I don't know if they knew that the Franco Brits were there, or if it was the Franco Brits, or if they had only 2 players in the server right now. So for the Czech side, they've made their bed. They're going to lie in it, and they'll kind of evade as much as possible here on the eastern side.
Yeah, a little bit of a slow start here for these teams. Again, that cautious approach, trying not to push out unnecessarily, but still trying to poke a little bit, gather a bit of information. You can see everyone kind of centering in on the same area here, looking to try and take control, looking to get into a nice little setup for when that ring starts to close. Still a lot of time left here, so don't have to panic too much. And I mean, Too Much Sauce in a really, really good spot at the moment as well in terms of what they've managed to find. And for those of you that aren't aware, Too Much Sauce is Dream Chasers. So if you've been watching the last few days and you're looking at this team going, well, who? This is Dream Changers. They've gone Chasers. They've gone through a bit of a rename. And I mean, they're another one of those teams that kind of needs to put up a bit of a fight here. You know, they're down towards that middle of the pack, and a bit of a discrepancy in terms of the points as well. So going to look to try to bolster themselves a little bit. And so far, up to a good start in this round.
I have to say, I do prefer the name Dream Chasers. It does feel like a lot more optimistic than Too Much Sauce. I mean, not too much points at the moment for them. You mentioned them being in that middle of the table. The discrepancy between them and the pack of 3 is 84 to 149. So it's a lot to bring up, a lot to make up, a lot of room to close down for this squad if they can, of course, find their opportunities. Right now, taking a look at exactly where they stand, very far away from any sort of contact. Eco, all the way on the outskirts of the map, up again, mentioning them being down in the 12th or 13th place position, so a lot of room for them to make up here. Still going to loot, and might come into contact with one other team on that northeastern side. So just sort of feeling things out as to where the position that they could find themselves in as this game rolls on.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a lot of time and a lot of space to work with as well. It'll be very difficult to get caught in a rotation when there's this much space as well. You know, you're a little less likely to run into a team until the circle gets that little bit smaller. But of course, we've got 2 teams that are looking for circle placement very, very early on, hovering towards kind of down towards Thermal Station and up towards staging. And, you know, if you start to try and move from Thermal to staging, there are these tiny little choke points, could very easily get caught out there. And there isn't a lot of attention being given to the more northeastern side of the map where the rest of the teams are coming in from, and there's a little bit more space to try and maneuver that. So the teams, I think, that are more kind of circle sweeping probably have a little bit of an advantage in this one.
Yeah, of course, Czechs be the team that Eco should be able to meet, so I imagine that will be an interesting fight. But happy just to sit pretty and wait at the moment, playing very far outside of any sort of contact here. Again, trying to gain a bit more high ground on Bardo's part. I think he'll be able to just catch information at this stage. Now, they are inside of safety now, so they should be okay for the next minute or two. Again, it's later on down the road where things will get really interesting for this Eco side. A lot of room for them also to make up.
I think what I also like about this, you take a look at how these teams are approaching this, and you know, one of the things you were mentioning, slightly smaller lobbies, so you might see teams start to take a few more risks, more than they normally would, and it's kind of nice to see that there is still that level of respect, that level of like competitive ideology, where it's like, in a normal game, this wouldn't be the case, so we're going to continue playing as if this is a full lobby, as if we still need to be aware, because at the end of the day, as much as there are slightly fewer teams, you're still not 100% aware of where those teams are. So it is nice to still see that kind of more methodical approach. However, Preds of the West have caught themselves a little bit out in the open here. Let's see if they'll be able to get them. They should still make it to safety. It would be hilarious if they didn't, though.
Not ideal to chew through your resources this early into the game, though, and you can see the HP bars of where they stand right now. Kyrian is not having the best of days at the moment. Loot is still pretty good for them, though. Seeing gold helmets on Joe Bear, at least. So they've got that much to play with, but going to need a little bit more support and might even have to do some counter-looting after the fact. That's the one medkit on Joe Bear being used. So it's one of the always big concerns I have with like sort of playing outside of the ring. It's just the amount that you have to burn through, especially when you get caught off so much as the Preds of the West side have taken. At least they are alive, and that means that they can still recover.
And I see they have the Watson, so it is a little interesting to me to see that they are taking a very strong circle sweep approach, right? Playing outside of the zone and not kind of close to where the edge of the circle would be. And of course, they do have ability to maneuver. They can rotate relatively easy, but with that Watson, you know, you really do just want to kind of bunker down a little bit, set up a nice little hold for yourselves. And they've chosen instead this... They're still in the ring. This is so heartbreaking. It's continually chipping away at their HP. And I mean, the first zone does so little damage as well, but when you're in the zone for that long, yeah, it can start to melt away a lot of those resources, as you said.
At the very least, they are getting a fair number of other sort of looting positions that have been uncontested as of right now. So again, it's that risk versus reward thing, the risk of taking the damage versus the reward of potentially finding more medkits and what have you. Unfortunately for them, I don't think any of those are coming their way. Franco Brits, meanwhile, not having the best of the games, down to 2 players already, engaging some individuals at the long-range combat. Bursting through, trying to get some damage. So far, unsuccessful for Clone. He's got shields in the way, so they should be fine for now. When they start getting closed in upon, where I start to see the concerns coming up for them.
And I'm wondering what happened to Franco's third. I wonder if I maybe missed the kill, or if maybe if something happened. But they are, of course, only down to 2 players, which does put them at a massive disadvantage, all things considered. But they're surviving for now. They'll keep themselves afloat a little bit longer while trying to... But they are getting pushed in upon. And that could get them knocked out if they aren't able to get the hell out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that was my key concern. You mentioned them being alive for the time being, but only for the time being. Bullets flying all towards their direction. It's not looking good right now for the Franco Brits. Eco with the player advantage, getting one knocked down. Shields are broken, and just taps continue to come as they spread around this bridge, trying to find them, trying to get those important kills. I think they are going to escape, though, and it seems like they've just about managed to maintain their lives as another squad comes in, trying to pick up the pieces of the rest of this fight, but Eco are continuing to hold their own.
Little bit of chip damage across the way, trying to burn into some of those resources where possible. Frag grenade as well. I like this, right? You do that chip damage, you try and get some early information as well, and if you can spot a cracked shield, if you can manage to get yourself a down with some of those, you know, some of those frag grenades, then possibly that's the signal to push in. But for now, you know, just kind of staking their claim on their territory. They're right on the edge of where the next circle is going to be, so they're in a really, really good spot. And they're just going to try and deny any of those rotations, and that's one of the strengths of the playing, you know, closer to the zone itself, or to the circle itself, because when those sweepers start to make their way in, you could really take advantage of those rotations, and it feels to me like that's what Echo's trying to do here.
A good call as well to go in the defensive position as soon as they got flanked here. Not worth it to continue that chase. You've got plenty of time and plenty more opportunities to find these kills later on down the road. I'm seeing UTFT engaging in their own fight. So the action has come a lot earlier than even I had expected it was at this stage. But again, just damage coming through. No player is yet to truly fall at this stage, even though UTFT are giving it their best shot, and they're getting closer and closer per the U2 and the damage. Nez, however, not getting away scot-free. So burning for some of those shield batteries, 6 left on his own part, and further bullets flying their way.
Yeah, doing a bit of damage, but taking a little bit as well. I think they are coming out on top of this engagement, though. There was a nice little thermal grenade, as you pointed out, burning through some of the shielding of the opposing team on the other side. So it did at least give them that, and of course you get that little bit of extra ult charge as well, so helps you along with that. We'll see if they can use that to their advantage. It is really cool for me to see the Lifeline as well. You know, Lifeline was always one of my favorite legends from, you know, way back at the start. And she was always, like, relatively underwhelming. Even when they buffed her up a little bit and they gave her that shield for the res, she was still a little underwhelming. So it is nice to see that she is getting a little bit of a play here. I mean, that heal can come in clutch, especially if you can manage to get yourself out of the line of fire. But you do give up a little bit of utility by bringing her onto the field. So nice to see that teams are finding a way to juggle that, to find some balance.
Yeah, my old squad used to have one player where he absolutely loved Lifeline because he was terrible at getting kills, so he just played supportive all the time with the combat medics and what have you.
Me.
I thought it was going to be me at first, but apparently there's someone worse at shooting than I am, which is a complete shock, but you know. Yeah, you are right, though. Like Lifeline appearing is always going to be encouraging. I don't think she was on the top 10 of the picks in the earlier graphic. I might have to verify that later. But again, you know, in theory, it can be a very handy legend to have in this context here. But not able to abuse the kills as of yet at this moment. Again, we've gone into a passive mode right now in this lobby. Everyone just sitting pretty inside little blue containers behind rock faces and you know, cliff faces and what have you. Trying to feel each other out, find the best opportunity of attack. If you go too early, then things are going to get a little bit dicey. So yeah, play the careful game from everyone involved.
Yeah, and of course try and make those rotations with as much cover as possible. That's what we're seeing Catjam doing here as well, as they start to make their way in towards the circle, but trying not to get spotted out, right? I mean, World's Edge, it is one of those maps that tends to be fairly open, so you need to try and abuse as much of that cover as you possibly can, or you're going to get caught out from freaking Narnia. We are going to see the Valk come out here, and this does put you in a bit of a tight spot. You can actually see some of the bullets being fired through. They're just a target in the sky, but they are managing to, for the most part, dodge some of those bullets and dodge some of the incoming fire. Find themselves in a spot. I mean, you see Player, for example, losing a lot of that shielding, but they do find themselves in a safe spot here. Can they maintain?
It's the big old question. One of the main drawbacks of Skyward Dive is leaving you an exposed target, and they will be able to hold their own try-challenge onto this team, which they were leaning closer towards here, the lower portions of the bridge, as they just continue to make as much progress as possible. Very little cover, but vice versa also applies to the opposing side. Player losing all his shield again, forced to use that battery here. There's two angles that they're attacking from on the other side of this bridge, so Catjam are kind of caught off against it. Might have to back off of this one because they're losing so much more shields. Even Pet down on the HP bars here.
And they're pushing for this. I mean, that is quite a ballsy move here. Echo, you know, they spot that out. They start to push in a little bit, and after taking a little bit of damage, it's that kind of ego play, right? Like, they get fired on and they go, well, no, we're not going to allow you to take that space. They hold their ground quite nicely, and I do like their composition as well. You know, you bring the Horizon on top of the Valkyrie, and then you've got that extra little bit of mobility, and then, of course, the Seer, as we spoke about earlier, giving you that little bit of extra sight. But, oh, the Horizon taking so much damage here. This could be disastrous. A very, very aggressive pusher from Harold. He gets the call from his teammate. Shields are down, and all he has to do is clean it up. Fantastic stuff.
You mentioned the risks there for Eco to go for the push, but it works out for them. And then there was a black hole in there that sucked them all up and kept them all in one position, allowed those sprays to come in pretty easy. And, I mean, what else do you say other than that, right? That was pretty effective stuff from Eco. First team down being Catjam. After they wanted to go for the fights as well, right? They were looking at teams. They were looking at the challenge to Franco Brits. Didn't quite work out for them. Eco being the surprise element once again. I'm kind of shocked that it's not the Franco Brits, the team that I believe entered this game with only 2 players that have still maintained a lifeline here, but continuing to play passive. They know that they are probably one of the weaker teams in lobby right now.
Yeah, and I mean, weird composition as well, right? You were talking about the Wraith, and on top of that, they've got the Rampart, and the Rampart's also been a relatively underwhelming character. Really cool shield, but the kind of stationary machine gun never really been the best of abilities. It does, you know, in a game where movement is so important, to be stuck stationary, to use that, it comes with some big drawbacks. So this is a bit of a weird one for these 2 players. And again, you know, you have to consider, well, what happened to the third. Maybe it would have made a bit more sense with that third player. And unfortunately, yeah, they come into this as 2. They've survived this long, though. Not the first squad to go down. So I'll be curious to see if they can actually keep this going.
They're playing pretty defensively, and I mean, they're holding off against every single bullet fire in their way. So right now, they're doing a pretty decent job returning some fire, trying to keep that Eco side, I believe, at bay. Dishing out some damage on Clone's part, but again, nothing major coming through. Eco's going to get forced back just at the very edge of the safe circle. get forced even closer towards action at this stage with 6 squads remaining is where things might get a little bit dicey. Indeed, they are closing in to another good fight. Damage is being done out. Bardo and Zuni also closing in. They are going to drop Blade and now look for even more here. Edge of the circle. One goes down. That's Preds of the West now out of the game.
This was one of the teams that you were really looking towards to level up a little bit, yeah, but it looks like they might just be in a third-party situation. UTFT down to only 1 player left alive. 2 of their players down. Nez with just a sliver of HP trying to survive. Those knockdown shields trying to keep him up, and well, it seems like he's still managing to survive slowly but surely. That ring is about to close in on him, but he hasn't gone down just yet.
Now he has. UTFT. He's kind of got caught pinned in a corner. Yeah, very unfortunate. I have seen them stuck in caves at certain points in the season, but that was probably a corner too far for them to go. And eventually, the comfortability settles in for the 4 remaining squads left, not UTFT on this time. Again, they're not an infallible squad. They've just been shockingly consistent over the season. They won't be sweating any more lost points again. They've got a 100-point lead above Murky and Co. Meanwhile, Chets have taken their own damage. They've lost Nidbod earlier on towards one of these other fights. Haven't got the banner for him either, so can't bring him back into the play just yet. And they've got a number of players between them and him, so they've got a lot more work to do if they want to try and bring him back. Might have to focus on just playing the game out from here.
We saw some of that Seer utility come out as well, so they had some sights on some of the enemy teams. But Echo, in yet another engagement, they managed to survive that potential third party. They managed to get themselves healed up, shields back up to full. And again, you know, playing that safer game, that professional experience really starts to shine through for this squad and really kind of elevates them that little bit higher. And you can see that this is one of your more top tier teams. They're not taking those unnecessary risks. They're playing very safe and they're being rewarded for it.
Continuing to catch information, take further challenges, spotting individuals. There's too much Source now try and get involved into the mix. They're closing in on one other team. I believe actually they are looking towards the Eco side, making their way up and over into the open, actually focusing on some other squad instead, excuse me. They are in the center as the Franco bits the next team to drop off. So down to 3 now here in our first game.
Oh, the Franco Brits out. That's our first and second placing teams currently off the board, but it's down to the last 3. Circle is closing in, and this is where things start to get a little bit chaotic. Too much Source. They've only got 1 player on low HP, but they are going to be able to heal back up here. So in a pretty good position. Got a nice little high ground here. We're going to swap back over onto Echo, who have found themselves in yet another engagement, but managing to get the first down against the enemy squad, and this could be the exact opening they need to bring it down to 2.
They're all just blind, however, smokes are in the way. Harold is going to start to pay for it as a result. No shield left, HP being chucked away. Too much Source now eliminated. We're down to 2. Eco are the top team standing at the moment, I believe. They're trying to see if they can wrap around and find the other squad involved here. Bursting through, catching off 1. Coach is going to drop, and Eco still hold their 3 players alive. This has been their game to win. I was looking at them as a team to step it up, but they might just take, I believe, their first win of the season here and all as they close on the last couple of players. 1 more knock should come through, and there it is. Eco with the victory on game 1 of the day.
Yeah, very impressive performance, right? I mean, this is what I was kind of saying from the start. You saw it right from where Welcome on back, everybody, to the ESL Legends, Apex Legends Premiership Autumn 2022, powered by Intel. We've just had our first round of the day, and well, Eternal J, you called it. Echo finally coming through, and with their first win of the season as well.
I don't know if I'd say I called it more than I just hoped for it to be reality, honestly.
Right,
I was saying, look, Eco coming into this season were one of the teams I was looking at thinking they should be doing all right. Like, they shouldn't be outside of the top 10. They should be a squad that hold their nerve because they are competing in the ALGS. And this is one of those cases where they finally let that potential shine through. Their win in the season, 23 points stacked up, 11 kills to it. I mean, look, it was a solid game from them. They played the passive style. The passive style worked out. And you can't really complain about what they did, right? They got the victory at the end of the day, and with this position that they have, obviously exploiting the situation that we have in today's lobbies, it's all positives from the Eco side, you know?
Yeah, I mean, an 11 kill game as well. Honestly, they were having their way with that lobby. And we take a look at our number 1 seeded team at the moment. I say seeded, our highest point scorers in UTFT. And I mean, they started to, you know, they were looking to get far in that round, but they did get pinched. They got third partied a little bit there. They were stuck behind quite a high ledge at the edge of the circle. Low HP after the end of a previous engagement. Third party comes in strong, and well, it didn't make much of a difference. They're still sitting pretty at the top of the leaderboard there, so not too many concerns. And this is kind of what we were saying a little bit earlier on. They would be more kind of concerned with placement than kills, and even if they can't do terribly well, they're at such a huge lead at the moment. It's going to be very difficult for any of those teams to really catch up.
Yeah, the most interesting thing to me was really how that game affected Eco standing in the overall standings, right? They were coming into today in the 12th place position. That win has already taken them up to 10th, and now they're only a few away from the next team up, right? They've got an opportunity to make more progress. They've got an opportunity to suddenly take from the bottom of the board back into the middle of the board if they can keep this up going into games 2, 3, and 4, right? Like, there's a lot of potential for any of these squads to do work, and in this case, well, they've found their opportunities, and they've taken them pretty handily in game number 1. So it's a case of how everyone adjusts against that Eco side and how well they'll contest against them, because Eco found a number of great fights, and it looked like, for me again, that they're playing the kind of game that I expect out of a team like this.
Well, that's going to wrap up our first round of the day. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll have round 2 coming at you. Well, welcome on back. We're going to be jumping into round 2 of Playday number 5. We had a very, very interesting first round here with Echo taking their first win of the series. UTFT not managing to scrape a win through. And I mean, I was just going back and taking a look again. I mean, UTFT have 7 wins over the course of the last 4 Playdays, bearing in mind that it's 4 rounds per day. So they have won 7 out of 9 games. I mean, they've just been absolute monsters. So we might see them bounce back. But how are you feeling so far about what our teams are showing us today?
Well, definitely encouraging, again, from that bottom end of the board. A lot of shuffle room from the 12th to the second position, right? And that's the key thing I've been focusing on over the course of the day, is how much of that is going to change as this season rolls on. Eco already proving that they can have the potential in them to do the work in that first game. Is a case of transitioning that over towards the second game now and seeing whether they can hold their nerve and get another win on the board. At this point, it would be massive to their position, as it would be for teams like the Franco Brits and the Chet side, right? Those are the other teams, and then that top 4 that we're looking at, thinking that they have an opportunity to make the second place run against that murky side, and then they didn't have all that amazing positions, obviously, with Franco Brits only having 2 players throughout the majority of that first game. Chet's kind of playing around the edge of the circle, burning through a lot of their resources in the early portions of the game itself. So I'm looking at those particular squads as being the other 2 that might sort of resurge and might hold a challenge towards what Eco are doing as we get ready for game 2 of the day.
Yeah, getting ready to dive on in. And again, we start things off reasonably slow. Give teams the opportunity to do a little bit of window shopping before they get into any of those engagements. You know, you gotta look your best before you meet up with your homies, and that's of course going to be the main objective here. And looking at where Echo are landing, oh man, Harold, he's heading straight for the drop zone. He wants that top tier loot, but Franco Brits immediately in an altercation. The UTFT realize, 1, Franco Brits seem to be player down. Seems that they're only playing with 2 players. And they also realize that, okay, well, they weren't able to win that previous game, so they're going to have to get a little bit more aggressive. Not to maintain a position per se, but to just kind of assert some dominance.
Well, we were mentioning earlier the idea that a team could try the risky play of dropping in against UTFT and playing the risk to make up the points. And Franco Brits were thinking along those particular lines. Hasn't quite worked out for them, though. 1 kill's come through. I believe Clone is the last player left in for the Franco Brits now. So once again, things going from bad to worse for this particular team. And that's the... I mean, that's all you can really say about it, right? It was a risk. They took it. It didn't quite work out. They couldn't get towards the loot in time. And UTFT being up by that player, you mentioned them smelling blood in the water, and it just makes it look so easy for them. Arsene trying to give a little bit of chase. I think he just spotted that last individual, so he might look for the kill later. Or, in fact, he might look for it right now. It depends on how much dilly-dallying they do in this position.
I mean, an extra kill point, why not? Don't give them the opportunity to bring their teammate back. Don't give them the opportunity to give that kill to someone else. Rather, hunt it down if you can. But for now, for the most part across the board, it's relatively quiet. It's a little not unnatural, but less common, I suppose. These early engagements like we did just see. And okay, it looks like they haven't been able to hunt down that last player. They're trying. Oh, they're trying. But they haven't managed to just yet.
Yeah, JC's put himself in a bit of distance between him and Tax, so I think he'll be mostly okay. Has at least got Clone's Beacon, so that might be something that they could work with. They could bring him back into the game later on. Actually, it looks like that's what he's going to do right now. This is risky, though, because UTFT are hot on his heels. He's got some distance, but not a massive amount here, so might be seeing another fight between the Franco Brits and the UTFT squad. You see JC... He's got a little bit to play with and he's going to find his teammate. But look at how close UTFT are. They're already giving chase.
They're still chasing him. They've been chasing him all along. This is so rude. Looks like it's just Tax, though, that's giving chase, as the rest of the team could be in a little bit of an altercation here. Oh, Clone has been brought back in. So, oh, no. Clone gets brought back in. JC on the run gets taken down by Tax. And now Clone is left alone and his teammate is being finished. That's just rude. You didn't have to do him like that.
It's a sacrifice that JC hopes will actually be worth it, but considering how close UTFT are, the high ground, the low ground, I have a feeling Clone's going to fall relatively soon, so won't have much of a chance to use this second lifeline, I don't think. Yeah, you have got just players all around him. Jinxie in particular moving in. There's the shotgun tapping his way through, and that is Franco Brits eliminated at the first stage of the game. Good effort, good risk, didn't pay off.
Yeah. It took a little while to get them down as well, but unfortunately at the end there, I did enjoy how kind of chaotic that was. Clone goes down, JC's able to get him back up, then JC's on the run, he gets chased down by Tax, literally cross map with the use of a geyser, gets taken down, and poor Clone, who's now back with literally nothing because he's just been revived, is left to pick up the pieces. So it was definitely a chaotic engagement, but it was a fun one to watch nonetheless. But that's going to be Franco Brits out of the lobby, unfortunately. So we're going to head on over to Chet's Esports, see what they're up to. And of course, for now, just still doing that looting simulator. They're starting to get a pretty good loadout for themselves, though. Relatively early on. Blue shields across the board. Purple helm as well here. So not looking too shabby should one of these engagements occur.
I mean, Chet's in their position, right? Seeing Franco Bits have been eliminated, they will be jumping for joy. Again, that's one of the squads that they're primarily targeting to try and overtake in the overall leaderboard. So seeing them go out this early, get no points for their trouble in this lobby, like that's massive for a team like Chet's. Because they could well find themselves on top of the day when it comes to that head-to-head if they keep seeing results like that coming through, if they keep trying to grind up towards the final place in positions. So a lot to be encouraged for this team. Hold their nerve again, just get the loots together and play out the passive sort of stages of this game now.
As zone starts to close in, a lot of these teams are going to have to find themselves moving, and this is a team that we saw, you know, in our round one. They were also doing that kind of circle sweep. They burned through a lot of that utility to maintain some life as they started to make their way in towards the zone. And the circle looks to be closing in a very, very similar position as from the previous game. So once again, Echo find themselves in a really good spot. They're able to loot all the way from epicenter down towards that harvester staging area. UTFT, having, you know, won their first battle, have a lot of space to work with as well, so they can start to move in at their leisure. But again, you know, you've got a couple of teams close to that circle zone looking to potentially catch out some of those rotators. So anyone moving in, gonna have to be weary of potentially getting caught off guard.
Interesting moves from UTFT right now, going outside of the safe zone to try and challenge a different team. I'm not sure how I feel about... I don't know if they're actually looking for the active challenge, whether they're just continuing to loot, but they're inadvertently moving closer to danger, so that northern section might become a little bit hot outside of the safe circle. Now watching these guys get involved in this one, a couple players from the south side are actually getting closed in upon, so... once again, we are seeing, teams try and ride the outside, burn through their HP. Didn't work out last time, so I don't know, questionable decisions for my money.
Well, I mean, they survived the last time, so guess we'll see if they can do that again. Of course, now we are back up towards that northern side, and we've got these two teams kind of posturing around one another, and I'm sure UTFT knew that there was another team here. And you know what? UTFT, what do they got to lose at this point? They have everything to gain. So if they can get some ego points, knock out some of those players, and look at this, right? They're chilling in the zone, and that could give them the perfect jump opportunity, get in behind that team as they're rotating. But of course, it's a knife's edge battle because you have to be aware of how much HP you're losing while you're chilling on the other side of the circle here. Wow, okay, they're doing the arena while the zone is closing in. Fair enough.
I'm not sure if this was intentional or not, but hey ho. we roll with it. It's UTFT. They as you said, they've got nothing to lose, and Nez might get taken out by a prowler, it looks like. No, okay, fine, got the heal in time. I was a little bit concerned for a moment, but yes, they've survived the arena, got a number of great loot, actually. You're right about that. Golden shields, golden armor, a lot of good stuff here, actually. Do you know what? Actually, I like this now. I can appreciate what UTFT tried to do, to be fair.
Yeah, I love it, right? And it's first zone, so the damage that it's going to do is minimal. You know that you're not contesting as heavily for heals, for syringes, because there are, of course, slightly fewer players, especially now with a team being taken off the board as well. So you're not terribly concerned about that kind of thing. And now you know that you're kitted out very well into the next fight. Had nothing to do with the team that was nearby and everything to do with getting a good, not necessarily position, but a good standing for moving forward and potentially getting into some of those engagements. But we get on board here with Cat Jam, who are also looking pretty good here, using some of those ult generators, ult batteries to get themselves a little bit more of that, so that if they do need to get the hell out of the dodge, the Valkyrie is available, getting some early information as well. Oh, that's a nice chunk of damage.
Oh, I love the charge rifle. not quite able to work it into a pick just yet, but you have seen that Catjam have now made themselves a major threat here in this position. I believe they are challenging the eco side as well. So that's another big player, another big team that they want to try and take out of the fold very early. Victors are the last one. If you can knock their points down, that'll be pretty encouraging. But Eco are fighting back at least, and they look to close in the distance. They're going challenging.
Oh, this is big. I mean, so you spot a player across the field, you're like, all right, cool, let's try and get one down and hit that charge rifle hit a little bit harder. Maybe you get one knock and you have an opportunity, but you don't realize it's Eco. They're going to push. They're going to hunt. Harold is out for blood. Yeah, he's looking for the players who dared fire in at them. Haven't spotted out anyone just... Oh, there we go. Gets spotted across the way. Tries to push in, but a little bit of chip damage will force him to retreat a little bit.
Just knowing that that charge rifle is very dangerous, so don't want to lose all your health towards it. On some work, and now Bardo can start to make up the rest of the difference, closing in, catching more ammo, trying to chase down the Catjam side. Now been forced outside of safety, so they're also going to start losing HP. Go for Skyward Dive, however, so could reposition against the Eco side. Are they reading it? They should be able to hear it, at least. The question is, where have they gone?
Well, there you go. Repositioning here from Eco. See where they head themselves off to, and if they find themselves in a difficult position. Oh, two teams. Oh, wait, no, I thought there were two teams flying. It's just the one. I misunderstood what was happening there. But we're actually seeing one of our teams again running out into the zone, trying to avoid some unnecessary damage, right? You don't want to get caught on the rotation, so you rather run out in the zone, but that can be very dangerous. If you get spotted coming in from the zone, you're very likely to get absolutely melted. And now with Echo having moved into this position, they could be in a prime spot to catch out any of those players, you know, trying to sweep their way into the circle.
I think Eco actually inadvertently shifted the course of Catjam pretty nicely with the Skyward Dive, because you saw Catjam taking the Skyward Dive outside of the circle, and they continued to stay outside of it to avoid the Eco side. I think that's because Eco actually launched up their own Skyward Dive to try and force out a fight or force out a mistake there from the Catjam cap. So kind of intelligent stuff being played out there. Catjam didn't go too deep in the first game, so we're trying to hold on to their lifelines, but still taking a lot of damage. You saw them in the background there, taking chip damage to the circle. They've got to get back into safety relatively soon, because, again, we saw that affect Chets in the previous matchup, and Eco now have dominion over this eastern front. They should be forced forward even more internally very soon. It has closed up, but they haven't seen anything. They are going to sit pretty until Catjam make the move.
Yeah, I mean, they've got a great position here to kind of bunker down with a little bit. And again, I spoke about this obviously in our first round, but I really do like the composition that they're running through here. A lot of mobility, a lot of movement potential, and then, of course, the ability to get some of that... not necessarily early information, but just kind of information in general, spot out where enemy teams are and try and take an advantage from that. Really do like that. And again, I was talking about how this is one of those really seasoned kind of veteran teams. I mean, HTP Harold, for example, has been around literally since the launch of Apex, right? Since tournaments were being run without custom lobbies. He's been in the scene for the longest time. So some of that experience definitely does start to shine through a little bit here.
Oh, Eco are now going for their own hunt. You see them continuing to try fight onto the Catjam side. They're dishing out some significant damage. Pet's actually gone falling. And the HTTP Harold wants to continue fighting all the same. So, yeah, not the best of times to be Catjam. Eco are hungry for these pickups. And again, a team that would love the kill points as well as the win points here. If they can continue to find these, then this could be encouraging. I've got other squads also closing in the pincers. So Howard's forced back into his teammates. Kazuni has dropped, but Howard is looking for his trade. He's got one. Needs to hope on for a little bit more. He's just going to get forced away here. There's too much source to the team that are involved in this one. Trying to get a permanent kill on this rock face. Wrapping around, spotting a second. They have also got the Wraith involved in this one. Knocking players. Eventually, they will get picked up as Eco hold on to their nerve.
I do have one player dropping down, unfortunately. We'll see if they are able to get a res out for that. And if they can, I mean, yeah, there you go. Beacon right there, so should be able to bring him back in as Praise of the West get taken down off screen. We're down to our last 4 squads here, so this could be a little bit of a dangerous revive. They're going to have to cover Zuni's return and make sure that he's able to loot some of those boxes without getting third-partied in on. And we can already start to see, you know, teams getting very, very close. They will absolutely see that res. They will already have known that there was an engagement happening there. So a lot of information given over here. Echo going to have to play this very, very safe.
And grab all the drop players loot as well, keep themselves stocked up pretty nicely. Cat Jam, I think they're running low on equipment here. You have seen the HP bars getting tagged up so heavily. Yeah, Rousey has nothing to heal himself, so he's fallen. Pet's fallen. Player, suddenly the lone player left. I actually did like the setup and the positionals that Cat Jam were taking there. The two players that were backed up at the other side of the bridge, trying to force Eco into player's position and set up a flank, but just with the HP not being there for them, Cat Jam spent too much time, taking too much damage. Now player's going to be the only player remaining for them. And Eco have pretty much forced Cat Jam into submission. Again, I love the way that they position themselves to try and force them into the damage circle, and that just worked out so well for them. I didn't even need to get the kill points.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Cat Jam, in a lobby of 4 teams left, the only 2 players that have been yeeted from the lobby are those of Cat Jam. So player is unfortunately 1 man against 3 full squads, puts him in a very, very tight spot, and is going to have to kind of rat this out a little bit, try to survive a little bit longer. And I must say, it feels like Echo have kind of been having their way with this lobby, but Chets, who came into this relatively high in the scoreboard as well, UTFT also still alive in this. So there's some pretty heavy hitters left in our lobby here, and as they start to position themselves for this final confrontation, we'll see which come out on top of it. Of course, Chets have a very, very good position here, basically in the circle. And they've got eyes, right? They have this high ground. It's everything they could need. If they could hold on to this positioning and leverage it, we may yet see them come out on top.
They are going to try to push the issue, though. You are seeing them look for those kill points. They've had a pretty quiet game. Again, been hogging the edge of the circle. We've got Nick Bod trying to lead the charge up for his team. They have got close range engagements. The coach in particular losing a lot of his shield, almost down to virtually nothing. JLo on the other side with the flank is playing against the positions of the other individual. Eventually, Cat Jam will drop, so not much left in it for player. Tried to survive as much as he could. Little do they know that UTFT have also been standing by waiting for their chance to strike. So Chets might have given up the ghost for their own right. Yeah, Nares is throwing further util out. What's he going to find of this?
Well, these 2 teams posturing around each other, you gotta wonder, where have Echo found themselves? I think that they're playing the smart game. They're gonna allow these 2 teams to potentially take each other out and maybe move in for that 3rd party. They'd like to get a 2nd win under their belts here. But again, UTFT have such a good positioning at the moment, and they're gonna be able to get quite a lot of good information. Oh, here's Echo. Oh, geez, they're right in the next circle, and they could find themselves caught out in a relatively open area here, and UTFT with that high ground positioning, they might find themselves in danger.
Should be aware of UTFT's rough positioning by now. I think they're hearing the challenges of the other squad involved in this one. Skyward Dive, I think, just got denied there by HTT Harold. Getting away from position, knowing that there's a number of players around that corner, might call in for backup. UTFT are happy to sit on the high ground and wait for this whole thing to play out. Again, they've got plenty of points. They can just clean up the win after the fact. So Eco might get forced into making mistakes by virtue of passiveness. They have seen where they're at, though. Again, they were aware of where these players were, so they'll continue to fight a war on 2 fronts. It might cost them, though, seeing shields getting picked up left, right, and center on that Eco side.
Getting pincered in between these 2 very capable teams here, and this is going to put them in a very, very tight spot. Going to try and defend to the last line, but how much longer can they hold out for? And this is it exactly, right? The pincer maneuver here. We're seeing JLo pushing out into the outside field, but it's caught out in the open, so in a very precarious spot himself as these teams try to kind of circle around one another, catch someone out in the open. Eventually, one of them is going to have to make a move. One of them is going to have to push in onto the other one, especially as, you know, time is ticking away. That zone's going to start clearing soon. Harold goes down. A beautiful frag grenade coming through all the way from Narnia, and that's going to give UTFT a massive advantage.
Chets even working on the other side. You saw from the overarching shot of how sandwiched Eco were between UTFT and the Chets camp, so they will eventually get picked up and cleaned up. It's a 3-on-3 between our last 2 teams, and UTFT are the ones that will get forced forward. They are outside the 2nd safe circle, so it will be challenges from Chets playing from that ridge line. Damage has been done, but not a massive amount here.
And with the bodies of the Echo players here, there's so much available for UTFT to just bolster themselves a little bit more. Now they have found themselves in a good spot. Chets, however, on the edge of this circle here, are going to be forced to make a move relatively soon, as there's a lot of cover available here on this little bit of an island. Charge rifle comes out. That's going to force Nickbot to have to pull back a little bit, doesn't want to waste unnecessary. You can't go and look for more utility at this point. You can't go and look for more shielding or syringes. So you have to make do with what you have. And again, with UTFT sitting on these bodies, they're fine. But look at this potential lurk coming in here. Nickbod trying to push in and take a little bit of space. And UTFT, they've got all in the world.
Jets are still in the safer circle. They should get closed in upon relatively soon, though. Rocket Barrage is coming out, but they're chipping away at this armor. Again, they have that high-tier loot on the UTFT side, so they could potentially sit pretty. The longbows in from Coach, desperate to try catch some further damage. They are, again, just chipping away at this stage, just trying to catch these individuals off where and when they see them. Further taps forward. They've seen at least one individual, maybe even two of them, so Jets are trying to play the war of attrition. Got 15 seconds before the circle starts truly closing in on them, though. It's down to the last few stages of this game. For Jets, it's high pressure because a victory right here could change the complexion of that entire top end of the table.
Trying to do some of that chip damage as now, of course, the circle is closing in, but both of these two teams are in the relative safe zone. So one of them is going to have to try and push in onto the other. Final round, 1 minute left, and somebody's got to make a move. UTFT are not really willing to give up their position. Look at that. They are heavily stacked with utility, and it looks like it's going to be Chets who push in.
They are playing a little bit closer to the edge, so you can see from the directions on the minimap, but they're going to get forced right into that compound. So at this stage, it's a case of challenging, weakening them, and then making the moves when the timer runs out, 30 seconds before the true fight begins. And UTFT are happy to hunker down here. They know that they've got to force Jets into a fight.
Yeah, I mean, the positioning here from UTFT is perfect. As I mentioned, right, so much cover to play with. It's really Chets who are in a bit of a tight spot. Sure, they have an upper ground advantage, but they need to start moving in. They're on the absolute edge of the ring here, so trying to do some chip damage, catch some of those players, and they're already, right, a lot of damage done to that shielding, and this could be the moment they have to push in.
Yeah, circles closing. Time to make a move. Art Stars and all being thrown out as Chets will make that position known. J-Lo is leading the charge. Coach not in too far behind him. Now just being suppressed as much as they can by the UTFT side. They continue to try and hold their nerve, try force out a bit of a better engagement, but right now they're just stuck in stalemate, even with the circle closing in closer here.
Oh, so many ordinances, so much of that crazy damage coming through. You can see the shielding for Chet slowly dipping away. UTFT in a perfect position once again, but look at this high ground here from Jinxie as well. They're kind of covering from every single angle, and Chets find themselves in the middle. Their shielding slowly getting chipped away at, and they don't even have time to refresh.
And UTFT took the brunt of the aggression with Jinxie's position. He's just still bearing down upon them from the high ground. They've got no cover from this angle, and the circle closes in now on the Chet side. They are forced out. They try to get higher, but Jinxie can't hold his nerve. Looks around as they charge into the main UTFT force, and Jinxie provides all the support needed as Nez gets a knock, and there's one player left. Can't hold on forever for the Chet side. It's UTFT with their 8th win of the season, locking it down and keeping control of Game 2.
As always, that end circle really came down to the positioning. UTFT had a fantastic vantage point over those last few teams. Echo get pincered in. Chets attempt to take the space, but UTFT are just that little bit quicker on the draw, able to get the utility that they need and take control of the space. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown, but before we do that, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Well, we're halfway through Playday 5, and, well, while our first round of the day had a bit of a surprise ending, round 2 came through, and, yeah, well, it seems we've leaned back into more of the same.
Yeah, UTFT taking the victory for the umpteenth time this season, so no shocks in that particular regard. And as well as that, they played a pretty passive game of their own right? They played outside of the circle to go to the arena, and they did well there, got their high-tier loot, and then just capitulated everybody else from that position, in particular the Chet side that did come up in second towards the end of it. So even though it's not quite a victory for them, I imagine the way the board looks like might still shake up again, that top 4 position for the Chet side. I think the key highlight, though, is Eco, who took the win in game 1, came second place here in game 2, despite being the third team standing towards the end of the Pinter play. Of course, they have the even number of points against the Chet side, so continuing to make more progress, continuing to push up that table from the bottom end.
Yeah, and I think what makes this so important is the fact that they are beating out that the higher placed teams, right? So they are making upward movement. If they were kind of beating out the teams that are slightly lower than them, then and not getting like terribly good placements, then you're not getting as much movement. So getting those wins, getting those kills, which are really important, has given them a lot of upward trajectory. And as we take a look, I mean, they started out in 12th. They've already managed to move their way up into 9th. Only 2 games left of today, though, so not a lot of time to get much done today anyway. Of course, there are still a few more games or a few more days to get through, but UTFT, 8 out of 10 wins this season. What an unreal statistic.
Indeed, I don't really know what else to say to that. Like, you know, we've played, what was it 17, 18 games right now, and it's like, that's like a good half of them now going the way of UTFT. Like, they truly have been the team to beat in this one, and again, we're not too surprised at this stage. We've just seen them dominate time and time again. For Chet, it felt like it was so close, though, again. For me, I thought they had the positional advantage in that last little fight, but just got flanked by one good move from one player on the UTFT side, and that made all the difference for them. It goes to show how fine margins these games really are here in the Premiership. For Chets, though, look, they've also got encouraging things to take away. Coming in top 2, they've now dislodged Murky from the top 3 positions, so and they're not even playing today. So the fact that they've got this opportunity to make up points when Murky aren't earning anything, Chet's constantly placing high as well. Like they're continuing to make that 3-team pack really start to think about their position going into the last week.
Yeah, and I think that the positioning of those last 3 teams really does serve to kind of emphasize the thought process that a lot of these teams go through in terms of like what your positioning is going to be, circle sweeping versus zone play, right? Echo are in the perfect position for late game, but they get pincered in. So the timing was all wrong. And unfortunately, it doesn't work out for them. They get taken out. It comes down to the last 2 players. UTFT take their spot and end up winning the game. Timing is everything. But that's it for this little bit of analysis. We're going to be back with round 3 after just a few minutes, guys. We'll see you after the break. Right, and we are back once again, ladies and gentlemen. So our second play through round, I need to say play day. Our second round is done and dusted. We're leading back into what we're a little bit more familiar with here, of course, with that being the win coming through from UTFT after a very, very surprise victory from Echo. So looking forward to seeing how the rest of the day may just go to be. So, you know what, Jay, what are you feeling right now? What are your thoughts at the moment?
We've seen some very wild stuff today, and some very different positions coming through from the from the opposition. From the middle sort of and back end of the tables, right? That whole situation with Eco obviously making the rise now, being one of our primary teams of the day. UTFT, of course, stumbling in the first one, but of course continuing to hold their dominance back into game two, in spite of playing outside of the play zone for the majority of that second game, right? So we've got some very weird things going on in lobby today, and as a result, it can be a little bit unpredictable. Of course, some of the consistent elements are still maintained. Chet's, of course, hanging in that top end of the table for the last couple of games. UTFT still taking victories. Unfortunately, not a lot of those teams within the mid portion of the table have been having a great time like I hope that they would do. Capjam, for instance, constantly going out very early on. The Franco-Brits, unfortunately, still being down by a player means that they're just sort of playing at a disadvantage no matter what they do. They've got to try and, I think, play a bit more of a passive style, and I'm hoping that in Game 3 they can try and pull that off. As of whether they can do, though, it really is onto how they're going to play the game out and whether or not teams like Eco will continue to climb up the rankings and continue to make high placements of their own.
Yeah, it really is a bit of an unfortunate one that one of our top point scoring teams at the moment is at such a huge disadvantage, and gonna try so hard to bring that back if possible. We saw them getting a little bit bullied in the previous game as well, so hopefully they'll be able to accomplish something here. But we are in our third round of the day, and of course that will be our second last. So team's really going to be scrambling a little bit here to make something happen. The hot zone was very close to Echo in our previous round, but this time it's going to be down towards Lava City. We got two teams moving on in here, and I do believe one of them is our two-man squad, so they could be in a bit of a tight spot there.
Yeah, that's not very encouraging for Joe Bear. But we'll see how they'll deal with this situation. Again, they could just play a passive stance, right? They could just hold on to their position, and they could just get the loots together and try and re-bolster later on. And maybe they might take the early fight. We don't really know. Of course, it depends on how close to the center of that particular section they really want to go with this. Again, if they are smart, they'll play the passive game and wait until the latest portions before they truly start the fighting on their own part. So, yeah, just looking towards that southeastern side where things could really pick up. Safe Circle already looking towards Thermal Station, a little bit further west than the previous one. So that's three of them that have started to look very similar over the course of the day.
And no one really looking to contest our two northernmost teams, right? Echo and UTFT, two very, very strong teams, and they have their complete run of the northern side of the map, which is pretty unreal. So you've got basically the entirety of Epicenter, including, Frag East and West, Overlook, Refine. Like, there's so much space available for Echo. And then for UTFT, they've got the full run of Skyhook, Drill Site, Lava Fisher. So they've got so many options available to them in terms of where they're going to loot. And giving that much space, I do understand teams wanting to do that, rather stay away from the stronger teams. But the problem with that, the flip side, is that you have given them so many opportunities to really get themselves kitted out into the late game, and this could potentially backfire.
For now, they are just looting. I've just held their positions and haven't really got the information together yet. Of course, that's the key word there, yet, as of right now. Preds of the West keep their positions. Check around for anyone that might be playing close. Pet and Player right now are the only two players within any sort of open space here. You can see actually the distances of the players like very far away from them, so they seem to be all pretty Gucci in that sort of sense, right? They're not really going to take any particular fights, and they'll be happy just to loot in their own right and play towards the end of the game. I think a lot of teams right now are very focused towards the tail end rather than the initial fights, and are opting to try and play to that sort of stance, right? To go towards the end and take the fights only when absolutely necessary.
Yeah, and I think that's the attitude of a lot of teams here. Early fights can really be problematic. But speaking of, Jets potentially finding themselves in a little bit of an engagement there. We do see a Jibby Bubble, which we don't get to see terribly often, so that does make me quite happy. But a lot of information given over here. Jets are aware of where that enemy team is. So gonna look to take this attack from 2 separate directions here, and that could spell disaster for this team as immediately some of that chip damage is going to come through here. They're lit up like a Christmas tree, and that's a beautiful amount of chip damage coming through.
I love that analogy. Lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm actually going to use that in some of my future broadcasts. Thanks for that, Sam. Appreciate
It's almost
that.
Christmas, so you know.
Yeah. Just approaching the end of November. So no presents right now for the opposing force, though. They have been tagged up very heavily by the Jets side, and they're continuing to look for even more here. They've got a little bit of a up and down disadvantage right now. That the verticals of the 2 floors of this particular building, and Jets as a result can't go in for the definitive kills. You are seeing them work around the stairwell, but right now not taking much more contact. So they've been allowed the opponents to heal up a little bit, get some shield batteries in, but also look for firefights outside of the windows. You see Coach spotting his opponents. They don't know about him. Sadly, this window is bulletproof, so he can't exactly engage.
Well, he can give over all of that information, spot when the rotation starts to come through, which he has done. Now, Coach, ooh, a little bit of a up into the sky, get some information, come back down, and this is good, right? Rather play the chip game, rather play safe, and there you go. You can get a little bit of cleanup towards the end there. JLo already getting taken down off the board. The caustic gas going to cause a little bit of trouble, but nothing that can't be handled. Is Joe Bear going to absolutely push this? Oh, does not win on that one, though. Gets taken down, and that's not the best position.
I didn't think that would go wrong for him, but apparently it did. That's fine. Cat Jam now closing in against the Preds of the West side, trying to see if they can pick up these casualties together. Past the windows, have to kick their way forward for Rowdy's part. Sprays back, coming in pretty easy to knock one more. They are outside of the ring right now, and they're working to clean up these players, get them all to drop permanently. And I think that right now, none of these squads are actually going to end up dropping in whole. They might lose a couple of players, but for the most part, everything seems to be pretty recoverable from this position. You have got Chet trying to make their way away. Coach is extremely low, though, getting a bit of healing. Nick Bod's dropped. JLo's dead. So a lot of casualties taken by, I think, all parties involved there. I think the team that came out the best was the Cat Jam side. Preds of the West continuing to hunt, and eventually Chets will get cleaned up, so they will be first to fall. When going from top 2 in the last game to last place in this one, that's not going to be encouraging for them.
And that was such a scrappy start to this round as well. It's actually quite uncharacteristic to see that much action so early on. And I mean, this is what we were saying, right? This was the consequence of so many teams opting to push in towards that southern side, leaving so much space available over towards the north. It meant that they were going to run into each other very, very quickly. So unfortunately, we do say goodbye to our first team in this round. But that's going to give a little bit of time for those other teams to start to restabilize a little bit here. There were no attempts at third partying coming through. So, oh, there you go. Preds of West taken down. I stand corrected. There was a third party that came out. And unfortunately, Preds of the West, yeah, a little bit worse off for it. Down to our last 5 squads here. Franco Brits, however, still alive and still in it. They've got their third player back. So, love to see it. Not man down anymore.
Nox involved with this one now, so we've got that little bit of an opportunity for them to actually hold contention and now put a bit more of a fight now with Chet dropping, Murky not playing. Franco Brits could hold a bit more contest now in terms of the table placings and get some decency when it comes to game 3 and 4. Unfortunately, not so decent for everyone else here. We have seen one team start to run out of meds. Rowdy almost went down there, had to use just one just to get back into the fight. But caught so far out of the ring. I'm not sure that Cat Jam are going to be in the best of positions. Again, they came out on top of that 3-way fight between Chets and Preds of the West and them. But unfortunately, I think that they might end up suffering in the long term because of it.
Oh, I was watching Pet's HP and I was like, oh, very, very close to dying there. Oh no, left it too late. I thought maybe that would have been timed well enough to get that heal through, but nope, that's probably going to be Pet down for the count there. Might be able to revive a little bit later on, but we head across the field here as Franco Brits seemed to be in an altercation. I think it was UTFT. We kind of flashed through the screen there, and I think that's who I saw. I could be mistaken, but if it is them, a bit of a dangerous position to be in here.
They're going to stand their ground. Eventually do look to escape. They have got safe zone advantage. They can sit pretty in this position and try and wait for actually too much source to give chase for that fight. Trivia trying to lead the charge. Has spotted one and will tap forward. Now they are in a bit more safety, so they could potentially hold inside this ravine and just keep their positions as they look for the fight elsewhere. Again, later on down the road, we are only within like the second phase of this matchup, so there's a lot of breathing room here. And with 5 squads left in play, right, with so much going down in the early stages, this could still be played a bit more carefully by everyone involved, especially the Too Much Source side, who are opting against that. They're going to press the issue.
Oh, yes, going hard and fast into the smoke here, looking to try and get, they managed to get the shield down on one of the players, so they realized, all right, let's push this, let's try and get ourselves an advantage. It's taken a little bit of time, though, to get themselves into position here. Nice, the drop down coming through, but not going to be able to get the damage across. Does get a little bit done, but is going to have to rely on the rest of the team. Trivia goes down as well. Sunny, last player left alive on the squad. Maybe pushing it wasn't the best choice.
And we've got 4 teams left in the first 5-10 minutes. So, like, this has been a very quickly paced game. We're talking so much about how it's going to be all, it'll be fine. It'll all be slow for the early stage where everyone loots up. Everyone's going to get on even footing. Maybe there might be a risk here and there. Nah, not in game 3. This one is just, it's gone down like a lead balloon. Like that, it's been so fast for everyone involved. Franco Brits are at least the beneficiaries of that pacing. 1 of 4 teams left and finally getting a decent placement. They were like first or second team out in games 1 and 2. And here they stand now with a chance to take the fight back to the last few teams remaining.
It's always interesting to me when I see the EVA 8, like I'm a bit of an Apex boomer, I'm one of those, like, back in my day, the EVA 8 was Omega trash, and no one ever played it, so really cool to see it. Obviously, it's gone through a few buffs, and it's right up there with some of the other shotguns as well. Mozambique is still pretty useless, but nice to see that the EVA 8's had a little bit of love in some of the updates, so love to see that. UTFT here in a very good spot, found themselves right in the circle, in the midst of Thermal Station, and this is where they really want to be. This is where they found themselves at the end of that previous game. Not this exact spot, but in the next circle, in a nice high ground position with a lot of visibility out towards the rest of the map, and I think this is going to be a great vantage point for them.
I actually do think they were standing here when Eco were in one of these smaller buildings towards the outside. It does look like, I'm not sure if it was this exact same position, but it does look like a very similar situation to how UTFT won that previous game. So might be seeing some similarities in their playstyle as a result. We have got a few more teams bearing down upon them from much far-range positions, and you are seeing Tax trying to frag back against them, tap forward, spotting several players towards the northern southern fronts, but unable to find anything definitive at this stage. They've got a lot of breathing in between them. The safe circle's not going to close up. They are still going to close up against the UTFT side, though. The opposing forces getting some tag damage in should be able to do some healing on Tax's part, especially. Shield batteries in and all. They've got quite a fair number of resources on the UTFT side.
Spotting out a player across the way there. Tries to get a bit of chip damage, but isn't going to connect. And of course, it is Echo, so a bit of a dangerous team to be trying to catch off guard, but we're gonna have Harold jumping them up into the sky, trying to find them a better vantage point. This is going to give a lot of teams an opportunity to fire in at them, though. But, they're diving straight in onto the enemy team. Somebody missed the line, but Harold is still in it to win it. He gets taken down. Bado gets taken down. Zuni, the one player who didn't make it up onto that high ground, who actually missed the jump, now has to run for his life. That was a questionable move from Echo.
I saw what they were doing there as soon as they launched Skyward Dive. I was like, I don't like this a single bit. Now another team's doing it as well. UTFT are defending this position. Everyone's just suiciding their way into this central position, and UTFT are having an absolute field day with it. More picks coming their way. They're challenging another team. They're bursting through the shotties, and our Horizon's going down. That was the Franco Brits. Cleaned up in an instant. Eco down to one individual, and it's all kicking off in the square. Taps of Nez getting one more. Beacons can get picked up from Tax. Jinxie might end up dropping. He's going to have to get a little bit more HP together. Either way, UTFT have just gained a mountain of points as Eco have dropped. We're down to 2 in the opening stages of this game.
What are we, round 2? Like, what? What has happened? And the funniest part is that Tax manages to survive so long that instead of going out as the 4th squad, they go out as the 3rd, as Franco Brits gets taken down before them. That is absolutely unreal. But yes, Echo not going to be able to secure themselves another win this time around. UTFT, such a stronghold in this position, and this is what we were saying, this high ground right at the top of Thermal Station with vision all across the map. It's going to be so difficult to take it away from them, and if you try and sky jump into them, you put yourself in such a vulnerable position. You also put yourself in a vulnerable position when you just run across the open field like that, because of course Ganji's going to take full advantage.
It's Catjam versus UTFT as our last 2 squads of this game, doing all they can to work against this UTFT high ground, which already two teams have attempted and failed to pick them up. It's not quite worked out for them. Rousey will at least give it a bit more of a passive chance. I mean, in theory, this war of attrition could go out for a little bit longer because they've still got a couple more safe circles to come back, right? Only round 3 is closing in at this stage. So a fair amount of time before maybe UTFT might get forced out. It depends where the next safe circle comes in. Let's have a look-see. Will there be any major changes? Will UTFT sit in their own right? This might be the only chance that Catjam have to try and force them in, and it will go down south of this position. So there may be a bit of a spanner in the works here.
Oh, jeez, it's
Never
UTFT.
mind.
I saw a team about to sky jump in, and I'm like, no way somebody's trying to ego UTFT again. But no, it is actually them themselves that are doing this. I wonder if we're going to see like a reversal, right? Like usually things start out really slowly for teams, or you know, in these games, and then later things pick up. Maybe this is where it slows down, but no, out of the pan and into the fire as UTFT jumps straight down in onto our last standing team here immediately. They're going to take Pet down 3 versus 2, and it's just going to be that little bit of cleanup. One left alive. Gotta try and get them down. Where are they? There you go. The last little bit of damage to come through, and it's UTFT taking the 2nd game of the day.
Are you surprised? I certainly am not, and that was a little bit silly from the
Well, that's our 3rd round done and dusted. We're going to be heading into our 4th and final very shortly. But, well, Jay, that was that is certainly a chaotic round for us. What did you make of it?
Yes. That's what I made of it there.
It was a round.
It was a round, yeah. Especially towards the end, right? Like, just the suicide dives, doing all that they could to dislodge UTFT. Like, I don't agree with that whole notion. I mean, listen, I tend to be a pretty aggressive player in terms of my own personal philosophies, but that was just a very silly situation from Eco and from, was it Preds of the Wet? Or no, it was Franco Brits who tried their hand at just dislodging them from this high ground position. I did not like how they played it at all, because at the very least, if one team goes for it, you can see how the risk could potentially pay off, but it didn't quite work out for them. And another team tried it and it didn't quite work out for them. And then eventually the 3rd team tried it and it didn't work out for them. And UTFT basically took a free win in this round. And yeah, I don't know what they were thinking there on those like top 4 teams, but at least Catjam and Eco and Franco Brits can continue to grind up the points. Catjam especially, right, going into the 2nd place position in that last round. So they can start to make up a bit more room in that mid-table. Similar story for Eco. We're continuing to follow their position just to stack up and continue to press forward from that 12th place to 10th place to 9th place. I wonder if on the overall standings they would have made it up even further than that, because, well, look, it has been their day overall.
Yeah, for today's standings, they've been doing pretty damn well. They're sitting in at second position. UTFT have managed to overtake them, take up that first place position, but it is only a 3-point deficit there. Chet's, however, sitting a little bit lower down on the day. But we take a look at the overall standings, and of course, UTFT is still an absolute force to be reckoned with. Franco Britt, however, despite having some troubles today, still sitting relatively firmly in that second place position and looking poised to potentially keep it that way.
I mean, Chet is still closing in, though, only 7 points behind. So you look at that leaderboard, knowing that they've overtaken the Murky side. They've been able to get into that top 3 here. And you could still see a swap between those two teams, right? They're both playing. If they engage each other, that could be a very fun little fight in terms of what it has in how the leaderboard could work out for them, respectively. There's a lot of potential, I think, going into our last game of the day between those two teams in particular, and how that will, again, affect that 3-team pack at the top end of the board.
All right, well, we have basically wrapped up that third round. We're going to be heading into our fourth round very, very shortly, folks. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we are back with our fourth and final round of the evening. And here we are. It's our final round of the day. We've been through 3 of them, and they've been pretty exciting, all things considered. Echo coming through with the first win of the day, UTFT winning the second, and then the third being, well, a bit messy, to say the least, but UTFT still do come out on top of that one as well. So once again, just showing that dominance that they've shown all throughout the season. We come into our last play day here, and we've spoken a little bit about Chet and Franco Britt and about the little bit of a rivalry that's going on there. Echo, of course, starting to slowly climb their way up the ladder. So what are you feeling for this one? Do you think that UTFT are going to be able to nab themselves another win for tonight, or do you think maybe one of our more surprise teams could snatch it away?
I wouldn't be shocked if UTFT were able to take control of yet another day here in the ESL Premiership, right? The situation for them has always been so stellar in the last couple of weeks. Obviously, every single day except for day one has been won out by them, and even on day one, they got taking second place. So, like, again, UTFT has just been the dominant force throughout the course of the season. It wouldn't shock me if that was the case again today. Eco are a little bit, like, just a few points behind them, so if they could potentially find the correct engagements and, again, take another good victory right here in Game 4, then I could see a way in which they could take the victory for Day 5 overall, but that's no guarantee with what we've seen so far today. Eco have been up and down and all around, so if they make their way into the last game of the day, we'll see whether they can make up any further points on the board. Currently sitting in 9th place behind Catjam, so again, another team that could provide a bit of a roadblock for that Eco side. I'm
very much looking forward to seeing what our drops are going to look like. Obviously, the first couple of rounds, things were relatively spread out, and the third round, we had the entirety of the lobby in the hemisphere of the map, and well, it seems to be a little bit of a repeat of that. Our view of the map is a little bit zoomed in, but we do still have UTFT up in that northwestern corner and Echo in the northeastern corner, and then every other team down towards the south. So this could really be yet another one of those chaotic rounds, as immediately Jets potentially find themselves in an engagement.
Yeah, too much Source made their way inside. Jets tried to follow them in. They are going to get forced back because the damage is definitely coming together for the Too Much Source side, so they'll be happy with that for the time being. Just looking for the information, finding these individuals, tapping forward, but unable to get the picks together. They are just capturing info as they stand off between these two buildings. And the damage, again, mostly goes the way of Too Much Source, so Trivia's going to get forced forward and actually try and see if they can take a decent challenge against them. Wrap up the stairs, look towards the back line, spots, but not sprayed just yet.
Trivia going to be forced off position there. On the Bangalore, love to see it. This, of course, the signature legend in his own right, Shiv FPS. Proven time and time again that the Bangalore can be very, very useful and effective. So really cool to see it getting a bit more time here in more top-tier gameplay. We'll see if we see a bit more of that. And with the Caustic as well. You know, I feel like the Caustic hasn't been getting as much love recently.
A lot of love right now for the Chet side, again, working their way into that top 3 position. Trying to see if they can hunt for more picks back here. Again, they know they've got this team on the ropes. They'll take one decent engagement on JLo's part. Eventually comes together. Awkwardly starts it, actually. Bleeding out on his own part, so suddenly things might get a bit more awkward. Too Much Source have lost one of their own, but they're working in against the Czech side, and they'll find themselves eliminated. So Too Much Source started that overall fight from the front foot, making their way into, of course, eliminate the first team, that being Czech's. A major setback for this side.
Oh, bit unlucky here for Chet. Of course, they were looking to try and take the fight up to Franco Brit, but not going to be allowed to do so. Too Much Source. They didn't get lost in the sauce this time, and they do get that first elimination of this round, and they managed to keep themselves alive for it as well. Just a down, or a knock rather. We don't get a death coming through, so no need to put themselves in danger to try and get that res off. So in a good spot, of course, able to loot those bodies. And despite all of the teams dropping into that southern area, not quite as chaotic as the previous round was, but seems like we may get a little bit of an altercation coming through here very, very shortly, as we've got two teams right on top of each other towards the lava siphon.
That's, I believe, the Preds of the west side. On their position, just waiting for their chance to make the move in. Clone's currently trying to look for another position. Trivia is, of course, very far away from his own teammates. Too Much Source being challenged further on here. Will spot one, do some damage. Not able to get the picks in, but has detected the entire enemy force. So they know that they're in for a bit of a fight now, and it's not going to be the end of their troubles on the Too Much Source side. Forced away, diving the hell out of dodge, but Franco Brits are giving chase. They're the team trying to engage from long-range positions, though Too Much Source are doing decent to fend them off. Not quite get the damage, but at least keep them at bay.
All right, Franco, your rivals in Chets went down first. You don't want to be the second team to go down in this lobby, so let's play it a little bit safer. They've got some good cover here. Don't have to play this too over-aggressive if they don't want to. Can afford to be a little bit more careful. They've got a nice bunker composition as well. You know, you got the core stick that's going to work quite nicely with the rampart as well. So they've got the Valkyrie for that mobility when needed, but if they can get a nice spot to hunker down in, they've got some really, really good utility to make roll. So going to try and find themselves a nice spot early on and then take advantage of that.
Very nice shot there from Clone. Not quite able to full-on get the kill, but that's taken enemy shield down of 1. JC will try join his teammate of Noxo. Going to make their way around the outside, try hunt them immediately after the fact here. The Franco Brits giving chase, but not quite able to find the source side. They have managed to escape into parts unknown for now. Franco Brits do eventually catch off one individual. So again, just information gathering, challenging, one chipping away at the HP bars. And they will force Miloshkiv to try and stand his ground at this stage. We'll also activate ultis and try press the issue here if possible. Spotting a little bit of info, footsteps in particular, to gain the information back, but they have backed away themselves.
I'm curious to see if Too Much Sauce can get a little bit more done in this lobby. Obviously, you know, bolstering themselves back up to 3 players gives them a really good opportunity, doing a lot better than they had done in the first 2 matches. So, see if they can get that, propel themselves to another one. Oh, goodness me. A lot of damage coming through there. That's going to be JC down, and that's not a good start here. Return fire is going to start to come through, though, so they're going to need to try and finish off as quickly as possible. Be aware of the shots being fired from downrange.
The Milosh kit has already taken 1 out, and kill leader with 3 kills as well. Working in with a whole lot more. Maze being thrown. Trivia is going to go ahead and join his teammate as they continue to push in against the Franco Brits here. Giving chase, doing damage. Again, they'll try and escape to some harder cover as Trivia will get caught out in the open and actually will get knocked down, but teammates are so quick to position Milosh, cleaning up Clone and, of course, eliminating the Franco Brits. You mentioned that their opponents in Jets did go down first. They wanted to avoid going down second, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do that in this particular engagement, so that's 2 of our top 4 teams being taken out. UTFT, of course, still left in play. And it's been a hell of a day here for Too Much, or a hell of a game at the very least for Too Much Sauce. They've taken 2 entire teams out.
Yeah, I mean, this is fantastic. I was just talking about, you know, seeing them make a little bit of a resurgence for themselves now that they have, you know, up to a fuller strength, and definitely taking full advantage of that. Very happy to see that they are making that happen for themselves. It's a bit unfortunate for the Franco Brits and, of course, for Chets, who were really kind of chomping at the bit and really kind of snapping at the heels of one another, in a sense, right? 7-point difference. Both of them wrestling to maintain that second place position, but Too Much Sauce, of course, wanting to close that gap. Obviously, we know that there are still a few days left here, so as much upward movement as they can get, that's what they're looking to have. But looks like Echo might be pushing in on them. Gonna have to play it safe here.
Another team to fall to the source, perhaps? May well be. I mean, they are setting up their rockets. Nico are forced to make their way indoors to try and evade the damage coming through against their position. They have lost a lot of shields by taking those fights, but they will stand off against the source camp. Do some decent work with the damage coming through to the sprays from Bardo in particular, but nothing major at this moment. They might get forced forward though, and indeed Bardo will take point.
And again, Echo playing this very, very safe, using this cover to their advantage, looking to try and get in behind the enemy team and take advantage while their backs are turned, so to speak. Oh, Bardo already going down here. This is not a good start for the Echo squad. Too Much Sauce looking to add another notch in their belts here. Damage flying through, and Zuni gets taken down as well. It's only Harold, last player left alive. The Echo squad manages to get one. Can he make it happen? Gets a second. It's a 1 versus 1 here. Milosh is so low, but Harold is still somewhere in the smoke. He is going to be able to get his teammate up, and that's going to bolster him a little bit. It looks like Harold may have decided to dip.
May well be. The Eco side trying to recover HP here. Harold getting out of the way, going to recover his teammate's banner as well. So they have got a little bit that they can work with. They continue to try to take the fights here. Harold working in the open, got his teammate on the other side, taps the shotguns, trying to take down at least one, but ultimately does get overwhelmed. Eco took the challenge, responded to Too Much Sauce, but it was too much to handle. That is a 3rd team wipe for this squad.
Where was the... Okay, say where. I mean, to be fair, the first 2 games they had 2 players, and the 3rd game was chaos incarnate. But Catjam looking to come in for the 3rd party here, and it's backfiring. Oh no, they thought that they could take advantage of a rough situation, but Too Much Sauce, they have the sauce. They know what's happening, and they're trying to maintain control here. Trivia is going to take down one more player. Last one left alive here for Catjam, down to a sliver of HP, using the thermal grenades to create space. But no, they'll get taken down. Too Much Sauce, how have you done it? They've knocked out every squad that's gone down so far.
What is going on? What is going on? I don't know what to make of today anymore. Oh, man. Maybe the name switch was everything they needed, Naori, you know? They were living in dreams prior to today, and now
or the
they're
third
just...
player. That could have been the...
Yeah, that could also be something to consider. I'm so... now UTFT's going for it as well.
No. I mean,
What a day it would be if they get all this success in this one position, team after team challenging them, and then UTFT coming out also fall to too much sauce. I would be shocked if that happened. At the same time, though, there's a part of me, a little part of me that really wants to see it happen.
100%. I'm trying to figure out who our last team is, though. We've seen them all kind of fall one after another. We're down to 3, and obviously it's UTFT and Too Much Sauce. But I'm kind of having a blank here on who our last team is in the lobby. So I'll be curious to see who that is, and if UTFT, I mean, it looks like they haven't opted to try and push in just yet. They've made a bit of space instead and are looking to reaggress later on.
UTFT will take their first shots off, and it's actually Predators of the West, the last team that are actually involved in this one. Just check the team sheet. So had a bit of a quiet game, but all things considered.
Yup.
So maybe they could come in a little bit later. They were pretty far away, though. You saw them off in a very distant distance, so they might not get involved yet. Of course, keyword there being yet. UTFT might just play their standard kind of game, though. They aren't looking to challenge directly. They'll find their positions in the end, although it is the exact same positions that Eco took on their challenge, so I wonder how this will go down.
We're round 3 with 3 squads left. All right. Don't really know what to make of that. Too Much Sauce go burr, apparently. I mean, they had no right winning 3 third parties, but they did it. They've managed to stay alive in this. And you know what? That's a lot of kill points. So even if they don't get placement, that's a lot. Or let me rather say, even if they don't win it, that's a lot of kill points for themselves. So we'll see what UTFT opt to do here. They do know where Too Much Sauce is, but oh, they run straight into some direct fire from, I believe, Preds of the West here. So gonna have to, again, you know, they were looking for a quick rotation, but instead they run into a little bit of pushback. They're gonna have to play this a little bit more safe.
UTFT will continue the hunt, though, and of course the team to beat for everyone involved in the Premiership. We need to hold their nerve back a little bit, though. They are hunting for these players, trying to find their exact positioning. See Nez around the corner, checking the corridors. Of course, will not see anything as of right now. The Preds of the West side. I think he evaded them by a tiny amount, though, so they should be able to escape pretty much scot-free from the UTFT camp.
I'm still flabbergasted at the whole 12 kills for Too Much Sauce. And within, like, the first,
You know what? I don't even blame you at this stage, because, like, at this point, I've just lost any level of conversation. I'm just calling out what I see on screen, because I'm still processing it in my mind of how ridiculous that is.
And it's one of those things, like, how do you analyze that? They took a fight, they won the fight. They got third party, they won that fight. They got third partied again, they won that fight. And they got third partied again, and guess what? They won that fight. And now we're down to like 3 teams. I mean, that is literally what happened here. All right, UTFT getting caught in the sky, but managing to survive. They're actually taking very, very little damage there. Okay, so he loses a little bit of the shielding, but nothing directly onto the body. So they'll be able to get that back up relatively quickly and return fire a bit. Trying to find themselves a good position like they've had in the last few rounds. See if they can find themselves a nice little vantage point again to take advantage of.
Even the way you explain that just sounds so silly, doesn't it? Like, it's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous from the source. As UTFT will continue their careful prodding at Too Much Sauce. It's tapping away with their long-range weapons. V7 in particular, of course, being utilized at this moment by Nez. But just bullets flying and nothing major being forced out. They are inside safety as the third or fourth phase closes in. Sit into position for the UTFT side, hoping that someone is going to make a mistake. And it might just be Too Much Sauce getting ahead of themselves, breaking away from their regular formation and their solid positions that they have been taking over the course of this game, and might try and look to challenge onto the Preds or the UTFT side. Looks to be UTFT at this stage as they press on. Look to do some damage.
Too Much Sauce. They're feeling brave, right? They've already secured themselves 12 points in this round, so they can bolster that a little bit. Sure, why the hell not? A third place is what you take those, and so they're taking a slightly more aggressive push here, coming up against the Gibraltar. Love to see. Been some very interesting legend picks here towards the end of the games, but nice to see some diversity, some creativity in what those lineups look like. Oh, a little bit more chip damage here. Slowly but surely eating away at the resources of, I believe it's UTFT that they're fighting against. I think Preds of the West were a little bit more towards there where that ping was, in fact. So, yeah, could just be a bit of space creation for now.
And they're shattering their shields right now. They have just gotten so many bursts down, so they are going to chew through those resources. It is, in fact, Preds of the West that they're fighting at the moment, and they will get a little bit of breathing to move forward. UTFT, you can hear them off to the northern side, trying to do some more damage to the source camp, who at this moment are now fighting a war on two fronts. So keep your eyes on how this will play out for them. Have they gotten a little bit too hungry for this? They'll know that no one's really close. It's all down to the long-range fights. I am a little bit nervous about how Preds of the West will deal with this, though, because they are the closer team.
But there's so much space here. One of these teams could very realistically pull back, wait until there's only one team left, and try and third party. But instead, they're all kind of posturing around this next ring, and the ring is in such an open area, and only UTFT really have an advantage in terms of cover. The other teams are going to have to run out into the open, and that's going to be incredibly dangerous. The crossfires that are going to come through from these two teams as they try and make their way in is going to be deadly.
UTFT are mostly looking towards the Pred side as well, so working in against that position is Nez trying to take the mantle against the source side, taking some damage from this scout again. Further shots out, doing decent enough work to dive back behind that ridge and maintain their position for the time being. 10 seconds until this closes in towards the next safer circle. Round 5 of this game. Nez, however, not getting off completely scot-free. Took a lot of damage to that one good shot. Shield shattered again as Tax continues to try and hunt for the player, the pick that he needs that might make all the difference in the world, but not able to stabilize the true kill yet.
Oh, Milosh taking quite a bit of damage there. Has to back away a bit. Trivia as well, looking to get a bit of space there as now. Oh, this is where things start to become very, very chaotic. We spoke about the open spaces, and UTFT are getting a little bit more damage than I think they bargained for. Preds of the West, they're having one of those, it's quiet, too quiet moments as they start to move their way in. They don't want to get caught out in the zone, so going to have to create some space for themselves. And, you know, as we mentioned, try and find that nice third-party position. You know, they do have the Kraber available, 5 bullets left in it, so potentially could get some really solid shots off, maybe give them the space they need.
Blade might be the difference maker, honestly, for his team. He'll charge forward, Kraber in hand. Let's see players. Oh, very good shot. Does drop one. UTFT taking a couple of knocks here. They might actually end up getting cleaned up here by the opposing force. In fact, they are moving closer to position. One player's bleeding out. Heals are coming forward as UTFT lose 2. Jinxie's suddenly last player remaining, trying to get his teammates picked up, but they're closing in like hawks, hunting for the potential elimination of our top team in 3rd place. Looking around, UTFT will go down. Preds of the West hunting, and now it's all onto the big dogs, the Source, if you will.
And they've taken out 4 out of the 5 squads that have gone down here. They're feeling brave, but unfortunately Trivia is down. So it's all going to be down to Milosh and Sunny. And of course, Preds of the West know that they are only 2 alive at the moment. They know that they could potentially pressure, but if they wait too long, there it is. Milosh manages to heal up to full. Now they do still have the advantage here, Preds of the West, but it would have been that much more sweet if they'd been able to deny that heal from coming through. This Kraber being a huge difference maker for the squad. The suppressive fire coming through. They're not giving it space, even for too much Source to move.
Throwing everything they have at them, quite literally in this case. Preds of the West on the verge of taking down one of the teams that surprises the most over the course of this particular game. Looking up against too much Source, they will get forced into each other in a moment's time, so it's just a case of letting this timer tick away and seeing who's going to make the better plays, and or whether or not it will come down to one final good move, or whether or not someone's going to make a big mistake.
And that could just be it. Oh no, running across the open there. Shots don't quite connect, so manages to get away with his life, but Blade again still has the Kraber in hand. Doesn't connect the shot, only 3 bullets left. Come on, you gotta make this count. The black hole does not manage to connect, doesn't give them the results that they wanted. You can start to see some more of the caustic gas coming out to try and deny the space, but a lot of chip damage coming down from below. Prey to the West taking a bit more damage than I needed to Birds of Prey, taking a bit more damage than I think they bargained for.
To be fair, they seem like they are Birds of Prey with how they hunted down UTFT, so don't blame me for that one. I certainly would have called them that. Might even be the next rename that comes forward for tomorrow.
Hey.
Too much sauce, though. Going to try an aggressive play. They're going to try to take some big risks here. Pressing forward on Milosh's part. They've got their own black hole. Counteracting, knocking one. Pressing forward on Sunny's part. Barely gets away with that one engagement and is forced to make his way around. Now Milosh engaging another. Caustic's dropped. Suddenly, this becomes doable here for the Too Much Sauce side, but another knock comes back. Sunny's alone, bursting through. One's bleeding out, and Pred to the West will finish off the job that all the other teams couldn't take, taking round 4 of the day of the ESLA Premiership.
What an attempt from Too Much Sauce to be able to do so much in that lobby to get themselves into the 2nd place position. They did fantastically, but of course you got to give it to Pred to the West. They finally get themselves a win, get that under their belts, and not as many kills as they would have wanted, but they got the win, which was the important part. We're going to have a little bit of breakdown for you guys, but first we're going to have a quick break. We'll see you in a few minutes. Well, that is day 5 basically done and dusted, but we did see a surprise victor coming through in our last game of the day.
Indeed we did, yes. A lot of surprises, in fact, in our last game of the day, honestly. Too much Sauce coming out with all the kills, and it wouldn't surprise me if the kill points actually racked up to even more than what the win came through on the other side of the board. Preds of the West, of course, taking their victory today, so that's encouraging for them, the fact that they outlasted everybody else, but a lot of the teams kind of almost, again, very similarly to Game 3, suicide dived their way into a bunch of fights that, at least in theory, seemed much more winnable than the last game, but at the same time, all of them didn't quite work out. You mentioned it earlier, right? Too much Sauce getting third-party fight after third-party fight and still winning them all out. They should have gone down much earlier than they did, so second place for them. I think they'll be very happy with how the last game of the day played out.
Yeah, honestly, so much credit to them for being able to survive that. I remember once at a tournament, I asked Shiv, I was like, what do you do about a third party? And he's like, just win, lol. Because there really isn't much you can do in those situations. So for Too Much Sauce, really, really impressive what they did here. They top that round at a 22 points, despite not winning the lobby. All of those kill points really did come in handy. They raked them in, and they're able to top that one. So honestly, well done. And of course, Preds of the West coming in first place in the lobby, but second place in the points for that matchup. And then again, of course, UTFT just behind them. This was a very, very interesting round. We said that about round 3, but round 4 definitely up there in my books.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting day overall, I want to say. Not so surprising, however, is UTFT in the overall standings taking first place. I mean, we've seen the two high scorers in round 2 and 3, round 1 and 4 less so, but it just goes to show again what we're talking about with UTFT, right? The consistency that they have held throughout the course of the entire season. Yes, they're not completely infallible, but they certainly are a force to be reckoned with when it comes to adding up all those points total. So there will be the team that's dominant at the top of the board. 1 point off the big 300. But again, a lot of the situation towards the mid and back end of the tables is where I'm most interested in. Eco do drop down to 10th place in the end, close out the day. Preds of the West actually overtake them. Cap Jam now up in 7th place. Chet's a little bit behind the British Franco Union, or the Franco-British Union, I should say. In 3rd place, Murky being dislodged towards 4th. So again, in that mid-table is where I thought a lot of this, the shuffle was going to happen, and indeed, that's been the case today.
Yeah, and I think that that'll be the case tomorrow as well. You take a look at UTFT, 1 point away from 300, which is absolutely absurd. Really a strong performance there. We came into today where they were like 4 points short of being 100 points in the lead. They have now overshot 100-point lead. They've very much secured themselves, cemented themselves at that #1 spot. But again, all of those mid teams, that's where we're going to get a lot of that movement going forward. But we have seen some really, really outstanding moments from a lot of these teams that we maybe didn't expect to see as much from, teams that had been maybe underperforming a little bit throughout the last few play days, but they came through really strong today, had some really shining moments, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to pull out for the rest of the season. But of course, that basically wraps us up here at the ESL Apex Legends Premiership Autumn 2022. I had to make sure I got all the words in there. Yeah, didn't screw it up. I'm quite powered by Intel, of course. So yeah, that's gonna be us wrapping it up. I've been Nari Mizuki, Eternal J. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody in the production crew on the back end to make all of this happen, and thank you to all of our wonderful viewers. We'll be back live again soon. What is our next play day? I actually don't know offhand.
I think it's tomorrow, in fact, actually.
Is it
the
tomorrow?
next play day will kick off. So plenty of things to consider there for everyone. And again, just the idea of how the mid-table shuffle is going to consider. Something that you did point out, however, Naori, was the fact that we've seen individual moments from a lot of squads involved. It's a case of turning those moments into consistency, which is what will ultimately be the big difference for their own part. So tomorrow might be that day where that consistency will come. We'll find out.
Absolutely. Tomorrow's the day to find out if our teams can maintain consistency or if they do, in fact, fall down to the wayside. We'll see you all tomorrow, same time, same place. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for being with us. And yeah, see you tomorrow.
Oh no, anxiety creeps up on me. Is this how it's supposed to feel? Tell me when it's over. I got someplace that I gotta be. It won't leave. My friends say, get out of your comfort zone. It's a blessing in disguise. Get out of what you call home. Your name is written in the sky. It might feel just like you're on your own, but baby, it's another lie. Remember